I want to talk about the United States-Canada relationship and the history between us that explains some of the tensions that are happening today. And in particular, I want to focus on the War of 1812. Now, it was a defining moment in the histories of both Canada and the United States. It was fought between 1812 and 1815, and it not only shaped the geopolitical landscape of North America, but it also laid the groundwork for the intricate relationship between the two nations. As trade tensions and political dynamics evolve, reflections on the War of 1812 are important because they help us to understand what is happening today in terms of themes like sovereignty, economic interdependence, and national identity. Um, in the early 19th century, the United States found itself entangled in the broader conflicts of the Napoleonic Wars. British naval policies, particularly the impressment of American sailors and trade restrictions, fueled resentment in the United States. American expansionist ambitions eyed British North America, or what we now know as Canada, as a target for territorial growth. And the convergence of these factors led the United States to declare war on Great Britain in June of 1812. There were several key campaigns in both Upper and Lower Canada. So there was, of course, the Battle of Queenston Heights, October 13, 1812. It was a significant early battle where British and Canadian forces repelled an American invasion. However, it did result in the death of British commander Major General Isaac. Of course, there was the Battle of York, April 27, 1813. York is modern-day Toronto. It was the capital of Upper Canada, and although the American forces captured and burned parts of York, it was a temporary victory. There was the Battle of Lundy's Lane on July 25th, 1814. It was one of the bloodiest battles of the war, but it resulted in a stalemate. However, it effectively halted the American advance into Upper Canada. The Treaty of Ghent, which was signed on December 24, 1814, effectively ended the war and restored pre-war boundaries. It did not address the initial grievances that led to this conflict. However, the whole war did have profound implications. So let's talk about Canadian identity, which we're seeing expressed very strongly these days. The successful defense against the American invasions fostered a sense of unity and emerging national identity among those who lived in, as I said, what was then called British North America or Canada. The Indigenous peoples who had fought alongside the British Army found that their territories and influence were increasingly encroached upon post-war, and it has led to significant long-term consequences that continue to this day and severely negatively impacts Indigenous communities. We do not have the right to do this. We have committed crimes against the Indigenous communities of Canada, and nothing can be said other than we made and continue to make horrible errors in judgment. It is wrong. Of course, the war impacted U.S.-Canada relations. It set the stage for this complex interplay of periods of tension and cooperation. And now all of this we are seeing played out today, all these centuries later, between Canada and the United States. The challenges may be in different arenas. Today they're in a very economic kind of reality, but then Trump has also made frequent referrals to us being the 51st state, trying to take over our sovereignty. So there are some real similarities. And the fact is, we have responded in kind by defending our economic interests and our sovereignty. So, Foreign Minister Melanie Joly has worked very hard to try to satisfy the Americans without giving up anything from Canada that is part of our sovereignty and our economic interdependence. This has not gone over well. The U.S. could do things like seek, they talk about being oil independent. They could end up seeking oil from geopolitical rivals, which would simply highlight the economic interdependence between our two nations and create more disturbance between them. We also see Canada moving to provide oil to countries such as China. So the United States, I know they're looking at this, they cannot understand likely that our diversification is a necessary response to the current economic tensions. We learned through the War of 1812 that issues like sovereignty and identity are important to both Americans and Canadians. And these contemporary challenges reinforce the importance of national sovereignty and the need for Canada to assert its interests on the global stage. We are seeing Canadians screaming out our sovereignty and our national identity. This has led to a very intense separation between the two countries. We know that we are now economically interdependent, but this is why Canada is trying to diversify, and the United States, by separating, has created an adversarial relationship that is very reminiscent of what happened in the 1800s. Diplomats like Minister Joly have tried to engage with the United States. Diplomacy is crucial, but it is clear that it is not having much of an impact. Now, the War of 1812 ultimately ended in negotiation. Obviously, today's disputes require similar responses, but again, it does not seem to be having an impact at this time. So we can look at the War of 1812 as kind of a mirror to the current situation. Yes, the specific issues may be a little bit different, but the basic volatility, the enduring, why can't I pronounce that word? The enduring quest for national identity is as strong as it was then, and it is impacting these interactions. And with that, I say, if you enjoyed this, please hit subscribe and like. Please share with those who may be interested. I love comments. I always say this, I love comments, but please keep them respectful. And remember, to be senior is to be proud. Hugs.